My Lords, I'm greatly concerned that the current drafting of the bill potentially freezes out the role for private sector providers, thus stopping the flow of investment into nature. That said, I was mildly reassured by the letter that came this morning, but nevertheless, I'm anxious that the proposition is that Natural England will become a monopoly consolidator and provider of mitigation solutions, with the dead hand of the state. This bill should be defining how private operators can work alongside Natural England to address the market for mitigation. Now, in an earlier group, I explained the distinction between permitting and licensing. In my view, licensing is the way to go for the EDPs, not least because they will prevent the derivatives, secondary markets that enrich speculators at the expense of delivering the outcome. We can't afford to create a new milk quota disaster with the creation of new collateralized asset class that has everything to do with speculation and nothing to do with nature recovery. Now, that's not an argument against private involvement, but it is an argument for channeling and regulating what is a fast-developing industry. So I support Amendments 258 and 268 because I think that they're going to place at heart how we deal with private industry and how Natural England is required to engage with them. So this bill should set the terms of trade, how those 80-year tail liabilities will be secured, what step-in rights will be in the event of the provider going bankrupt. Will the obligations be characterised as Section 106 or as a land charge at the land registry? The Section 106 route has criminal and prosecution routes in the event of non-compliance, but a land charge is an unenforceable civil matter, subject to litigation. How we deal with these is going to be a very important part, and it needs to be on the face of the bill. I spoke about these tail liabilities. I have some experience of this, as I declared earlier. I'm a director of Norfolk Environmental Credits Limited, the device through which the local councils in Norfolk manage environmental credits. And we are subject to international accounting standards. We need to take into account our covenant strength, and I don't believe this has been thought through at all. We made, I believe, from memory, about £5 million worth of sales of credits to local developers, but the balance sheet value was nil, because we have to discount that income over an 80-year tail. And the interplay between the balance sheet, I'm seeing my noble friend Lord Mackinlay nodding, he's a tax man, he understands these things. The interplay between the P&L and the balance sheet is something that this bill has not contemplated at all, and it must. Unless we include sensible benchmarking accounting standards to value the upfront contributions against those tail liabilities, we will never give confidence clarity so that schemes can be consistently compared. Right. With me? Yeah. Now, none of this essential detail is contemplated by the bill, and it should be. Now, this is before we get to private industry having a role in the pricing, and the heroic assumption, as is anticipated, that Natural England will be able to deliver mitigation more efficiently than a competitive, healthy private sector. Now, given the monopolistic nature of the state-owned mechanism for charging and the speed at which the large bureaucratic organisations operate, this completely unqualified assumption seems tenuous. There are obvious conflicts of interest and susceptibility to legal challenges through those conflicts. How are Natural England going to kite mark private proposals? What protections would private operators have against predatory pricing or the loading of legal contractor inspection costs onto innovative solutions, with the only opportunity for these private operators to appeal be against the organisation that's trying to eat their lunch? So we need the innovation in private providers, so we avoid the muddled thinking and I'm delighted to see the noble Lord Hunt of King's Heath in his place, what he characterised as the eco-zealots that bought us the useless Bat Bridge and the eye-wateringly expensive Bat Tunnels, each of which was a colossal waste of money, or the sloppiness of the designation of land at Ebbsfleet as unfavourable when it wasn't. So we need a streamlined process where developers can work with landowners to propose and have certified good schemes delivered in local markets at sensible prices. And especially now we contemplate that hundreds of these EDPs may be produced. And while Natural England is focused on their own proposals, we need to give comfort to private operators that their applications will be dealt with promptly and just sort of just submitting the ideas and not having them taken seriously by Natural England is no way to proceed. We need to establish contract certainty, the legal basis, and the enforceability of these projects. And of course, the assurance that the mitigations will be delivered over the liability period. So failure looks like there will be packaging and collateralisation of these schemes into another subprime crisis. We must guard against that. The private sector has a role and can and should work in tandem with Natural England, but all this counts for nothing unless the terms of trade are set. My Lords, I have other things to say, but given the time, I'll stop there, except that the bill needs to explicitly state that the private sector has a role to play, but that Natural England should have a statutory duty to actively assist competition in this space, in a promptly and timely manner, even if it is at the expense of their own proposals.
I might just briefly intervene. As I listened to this debate, I thought that everybody was talking about it from the perspective of the person who do the work. I think the prime focus of what we should be discussing should be the best outcome for nature. And my view is that the more choice that is available to help nature is the one we should go down. And therefore, I don't think we should exclude any possibility of all kinds of commercial arrangements that may surround this, some of which, particularly given the points Noble Lord Fuller was drawing to our attention, we may not yet even have thought of. So I think we should keep it open, every option open, in order to ensure that the outcome for nature ultimately is our prime consideration.
He makes a point, which I'll turn the pages I missed. Essentially, we are creating financial instruments with muddy Wellingtons attached. And I think it's that balance that we need to think about as we contemplate how this bill will work in practice, with those 80-year requirements to keep and maintain these projects, which are contemplated by the EDP. It needs a change of thought, but certainly international accounting standards are going to be at the front of our mind, because if the provider goes bust, I mean, this is the sort of question that actuaries are employed to in life insurance companies. They know that they've got a liability to pursue, and what's the sum of money up front needs to be dealt with it. And that's not at all contemplated by Clause 59 of this bill. It needs to be, and this is the point I'm trying to make, and the state can't do it itself. It needs a flow of private money coming into this space to benefit nature, but one that has its feet on the ground and the numbers add up.